Welcome to our podcasts, Wise Black Nanas, Life Coaching Between the Dash. Hey, what do you do when it feels like life has thrown you a few too many challenges, knocked you down, in the bed, hard to talk about even with your best friend challenges, and it feels like the challenges are winning? Wouldn't it be nice to hear from your Nana? Or a stand-in Wise Black Nana? Well, they are Wise Black Nanas, Sharla Walker, PhD, and Joanne Early, MS, two mature women with over 70 plus years of combined coaching and mentoring, professional human resources, and business experience. The wonderful news is, these Wise Black Nanas are still living and learning about this amazing life, about resilience and grit, gratitude and appreciation, and the extraordinary power of love and friendships, being positive and supportive, and learning from others. Welcome to Wise Black Nanas. Let's listen in.
Welcome to our podcast. I'm Joanne Early, one half of Wise Black Nanas, and we talk about our views, our life experiences, and issues that we have lived and are presently living. And oh my goodness, what an exciting time we're living in right now. I am extra pumped because we are welcoming our Dr. Sharla back to the podcast. And I am so excited that, again, she joins me on this topic of purpose. Dr. Sharla?
Hi, everyone. Thank you. I am so glad to be back. I am the other half of this Wise Black Nanas, and I have missed being a part of this. And I'm just so glad to be back. And, got all kinds of good topics from my medical experience and other experiences. So I can't wait to share those with you. So let's get it going.
All right.
In a past podcast, we did question and answer series, and one of the questions had Joe and I perplexed. Yeah, can anybody think that they could perplex us? Us two fabulous women,
Easily.
But it was an episode, and the question that we received. And I'll read the question as it was given. It says, "Dear Nanas, how do I start to understand my life purpose? Do you feel like you need to understand your life purpose?" That was a question that kind of threw both of us a wrench, I guess you could say, because I never considered what I was doing or how I had planned as life purpose. Just on a short tale is my grandmother and great grandmother. They never came to me or described or counseled me on the purpose of life. It was always, what are you going to be when you grow up? You are not going to be a domestic technician. She didn't say that, but that's what I'm saying now, or a worker, or domestic person. And that's really what they focus on, is that they did not want me to do what they did.
Yeah.
So, Joanne, how about you?
Well, I tell you, as I said in response to that question on the podcast, I really kind of cringe every time I get that question, and I have a hard time answering it because, similar to you, it's just not something that I think about purpose. So just like we usually do when we are thinking about a topic that we're going to discuss on the podcast or something we'd like to know a little bit more about, we kind of fall back on our research. So in this case, it was a lot to validate, kind of my own feelings. I mean, I know what purpose means. I think I know what it means, but what does it really mean? And how do you begin to look at it from a standpoint of my life's work and understanding what that really means? So, like Dr. Sharla, very much like her, in my youth and growing up, and for many generations over and over again, that's kind of what we heard from our parents. our grandparents and older people, what is it you want to be when you grow up? And I heard many, many times, get your education. It wasn't so much about looking for a career or a focus because, my parents were not professional people, so they didn't really know about careers. They just know get your education. That way you could get a good job, you can do better than me, you could be better than us. That's what they focused on. A lot of it sometimes was the expectation of following in the family's footsteps. We had friends, of course, that were from professional families. Their father might have been a doctor, or their mom might have been, or our auntie might have been a nurse, a teacher. We had certainly Black lawyers, business owners. So they got a different kind of message. They were kind of expected to follow into the family footsteps. Wouldn't you say, Dr. Charlotte, that was your experience, or you witnessed that?
I think yeah, I think mine was similar. I had more of a female influence than a
Mm-hmm,
male influence. So
mm-hmm,
I knew that men were around, but they weren't really a part of my grounding. I mean, I
mm-hmm,
think about that now, but they weren't really had contributed to what I was going to be or what my purpose was.
mm-hmm,
They
mm-hmm,
would just be talking. That's what I knew. This my
mm-hmm.
grandmother, grandmother, great grandmother were really forces that really honed in on that.
Right.
And I can also say, sadly, that my mother wasn't really that involved with with that part of my life either. Um, so um, that's why my stress comes from my grandmother. So
Yeah, I
and
think in my case and in my mother's case, she was always striving to get to that professional class. I remember her taking classes and going to school. She was challenged with, limited resources, and whatever resources she had, it was to take care of her very large family, as a single mom, or if she was married, how to provide. My mother had several marriages as I was coming up, but again, that's another podcast. But as we were growing up, we saw her, struggling to always, become someone better, than she was and to improve her circumstances. And so she did encourage us to get your education, um, go to college. So that was, kind of, I was hearing that at home. As I said, a little bit before. I had a lot of friends whose families were ministers, teachers, owned a mortuary. And those kids were expected to, kind of follow, and many of them did follow into that professional class. Now, whether that was, quote, their purpose or not, but I would think that they were probably getting a little different message, than some of us that, whose parents weren't in those professional classes. I think, certainly in our generation, as many of us were able to complete our education, we've probably become maybe the largest, and this is just my thoughts now, maybe the largest professional generation, certainly than the generation that came before us. So this,
yeah,
go ahead.
I just want to add to that. I was just thinking about what you said is that and reflecting on some of the kinds of jobs that I did when I was in junior high school and high school
Hmm.
that I probably did once. Um, Coming from the Central Valley, there's it's a fruit valley and there's
Hmm.
lots of grapes and watermelons and all that other kind of cotton,
Ah,
other
ah,
kind of stuff to toss around. And
right.
I recall vaguely, not vaguely, I recall having a layaway at everybody probably knows Newport stores. That's a long, long time ago.
Yeah.
And on leeway, and my mother told me that she would get my leeway out if I went and worked this field. And the field was 3 miles long, and we got, for instance, a tray for grapes. So that's about a grapes. It was the nastiest, dirtiest, hottest job that I've ever did. And I said, I'm going to school. I'm not doing this kind of work. I mean, people who enjoy that work, I I I give it to you. God bless you. But it wasn't a fit for me.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, my mother only gave me $20 on my leeway. So I still had to wind up working somewhere else to get the rest of my money. But I say that to say that, all money is not good money, and you have to be very careful about your purpose, um, and what you want to be, and how you're going to turn out, and how that's going to help you be what you want to be.
Yeah, I think when we think about some of the things that we did early on as teens or early adulthood, it was more or less to make some money. It wasn't so much thinking about, okay, this is what I'm meant to do in life, or this is my purpose, and whatever. Certainly not the kind of entry-level jobs. It's really more about, hey, how do I make some money, either to do the things I want to do, or if you were young, had a young family, help take care of the family. So we get back to this complex topic of purpose and trying to just understand, how does that work? And it's I think a relatively new concept, I don't know when it came about, whatever, but it's a relatively new concept because this just wasn't what we were hearing, probably back in our coming of age days, and we were trying to figure out the question around, what we want to be. What do you want to be, or what do you want to do when you grow up? Even if you got that question, because all of us certainly did not
Right,
get that question. So
right.
again, this episode is about trying to understand that better and to try to put some, kind of everyday talk around defining purpose or knowing what our calling is, and just kind of helping to answer that question of, just what were we put here on earth to do? And what do we want to do when we grow up? And again, as we said earlier, some of us may not ever grow up, but again, that's also another podcast, because I certainly feel that way sometimes, that, I don't ever want to grow up. I want to just stay in this all the time.
I understand. So, what do you want to be when you grow up? Oh God, that's such a dynamic question to
Yeah, it
ask
is, isn't
young
it?
people, or even older people.
Yeah.
You know, many of us have had some heated arguments or some um, lively discussions about what that should be.
Hmm.
Um, for me, it was get your education. My grandparents and great grandparents were really focused on me having my education, and which was weird because they didn't have an education. So, they had just a bare minimum, but they really made sure that I saw some aspects of the domestic technician life. And I went to work with my grandmother and iron sheets and washed this and did other things. And I knew that that was not a life that I wanted. Um, but many parents had no idea what that looked like. What did it look like to be something when you grew up, and that was not a focal point of them.
No, no. For them, it was more about um, having resources and earning money to help take care of the family. Part of that, of course, is, historic and the time that we grew up in and what was available. Um, So, did you think though that your that they exposed you to that kind of work to help kind of emphasize that this is not something that we want you to have to do? Because the times were changing, there was more opportunities available in the 60s, early 70s. Do you think that's what was going on with them?
I think that the experiences that I have, my grandmother, my great grandmother, going to work with them and going, to just see what they're doing, how they were doing, and what they had to do. And
Hmm.
also just them being paid in cash really was an insight to me, especially later on when they became ill and there was no social security or anything taken out because everything was paid in cash.
Ah,
Now, with my mother, it was a whole different thing. It was really about the money. I don't really feel that she was concerned with what the job was professional not. It's just to get out there, do what you got to do, and make the money and bring it to me. I could be wrong. God bless her soul. I could be wrong, but that's how I feel. So my focus has always been on education. I have loved school. I have loved school. And sometimes my great grandson they tickle me because he'll say, "Oh, grandma, you smart. You teach more than one class." And I said, "No, I just did my work, and that's what you need to do. Do your work." So anyway, so do better than others. I guess it depends. It depends. I mean, we had big families back then. So you're almost like competing against your relatives because, there's at least 10 to 12 in each family. So there was
yeah,
lots of girls, lots of boys,
yeah.
and we were more or less competing against each other because when we came together, it'd be like 36 of us, and we're
Oh my
all about the
goodness.
same age and
Ooh,
stuff like that.
yeah.
Or when they went to the field, they all went to the field. I didn't go after the first couple of times. They all went to the field. And they would be glad that they cut a 3 mile row of grapes. And I would say, good for you. Good for you. They can read my book. But um, I knew what my expectation was from my foundation, and
Hmm.
I did not want to disappoint. So that's that caused some angst and some issues, particularly with my mother. Um, she couldn't understand working and enjoying the money, like going to get something that you want, a dress, whatever. Um, but I did. I mean, my first check from Pacific Telecom, I was so proud. I was so proud of that check that I wouldn't spend it all on a stereo. And she was so mad.
I think I would have been mad too.
She was so mad at me that, things that take place between mother and daughter. That's another episode. But and I couldn't understand where all the anger was coming from. Um, but anyway, that's kind of my footsteps um, into like becoming uh, what I consider professional, a professional worker. I nothing wrong with the field or anything like that. It just wasn't what I wanted to do, and I know that I had to do more and to step out of that.
Yes.
I didn't have family that were in the ministry or in the mortuary or any other city of Fresno, state of California, or anything like that. So I had to make it on my own, and which it was hard, but it was worth it. I didn't have any doctors, lawyers, um, but I did have teachers. I had good teachers who cared, who
Yes.
saw something
Hmm.
in me, who saw something in me and decided that I was worth something. Extra credit or extra work or workload.
Right.
Um, they gave me opportunities that I didn't think that I would have.
Hmm.
Um, so that was how I thought about professional, and that's kind of where I've been. So I'm still struggling, talking to my grandkids and great grandkids, and trying to get them to understand. But they think grandma's old and and don't know what she's talking about, but they come around eventually.
Right. Right. Yeah, so many of us struggle with how to answer this question about my purpose, my calling, just what is that? So even sometimes with a great job, making, decent or excellent money, yeah, our careers are considered successful. We have the popularity and friendships. We might still feel like something is missing. We have a sense of discontent. Something's nagging at us that we're not maybe achieving all or being all that we can be. We've got this inner feeling that something is off. So those might be some first hints that maybe you're not quite at your purpose, or there's still some things that you need to do. But in this research that we did, we found that um, you're not alone. There are a lot of us that don't know how to articulate, or we're not comfortable in articulating purpose. We got that nagging feeling that there's still something that we're meant to be. We're trying to find, quote, what that purpose is, and it just may not be obvious. It may take us a while, and it can change as our focus changes. We can even feel fear and question our choices as we are discovering our calling. And it could be totally different from the work, the career, the location that you're currently doing. It's a very complex issue. And as I said on that prior podcast that we did on Ask the Nanas, a prior um, podcast, I am really in awe of all of those individuals, all of those people that know their purpose and that they're driven like a beacon toward that. I also want to acknowledge that I, like a lot of us, that, want to acknowledge that we're just not all there with you. So again, in our attempt to answer some of those questions, we went back to the research to find out just what is purpose. Purpose is more being. It's more of, how do I know what I am feeling about what I should be doing? It's a more individual, a more intrinsic. It's changing and can evolve. It's kind of making the most of the time that we have here and have here on Earth. It helps us answer the questions who we are when we're doing whatever it is we're doing. It's how you appear in everything that you want to accomplish and everything that you accomplish. It's really knowing who you are, kind of being tuned into yourself, knowing your strengths, knowing your interests, knowing what you're good at. And again, doing what you love to do. Just what is it that brings the most joy to you? And it is asking ourselves again about what is our purpose? What is my calling? What does all this mean? It's about thinking what am I the most happiest at, feel the most fulfilled at deep inside? And then the other part of that, or the other side of that, is kind of what purpose is not. So we talked a little bit about, or I did mention all the things around what purpose is. Purpose is not how high the salary you earn. all the activities or all the things that we do. It's not so much about doing. It's not a process, a step-by-step build up. It's not doing what is expected of us by our parents, maybe by society, not by, what your family's business is. It's really more about you. It's not about having all the material things that we know are important things to have. The houses, the cars, the savings account. Those are things that we need to live. And it sometimes may be that you might be in a very, very envious and popular career, and you still feel something liking because all of those things are what we do to survive and live. It's not so much our inner core of who we really are. So don't feel alone because many of us are still searching and have difficulty articulating what our quote purpose is. And we have that nagging feeling sometimes that says, maybe we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing, that we're not quite satisfied with where we are. Sometimes finding your purpose may not be as obvious as it is for someone else. We may not have the natural talent. We may not have that musical ability. We may not be able to sing those beautiful songs. And we can feel fear or we can question our choices, as we discover or try to discover what our calling is. And as Dr. Sharla has said, that's okay because it just might be different from anything you've experienced, and it might be very, very different from your work, from your current career, or your vocation. And if you're not interested in finding out or knowing what your purpose is at this time, then that's okay too. Maybe you're not really ready to take that journey. So don't beat yourself up. If you can't answer that question, and you don't know all those answers. If you're interested, there's lots of help out there. Just take your time. So, do you think all is lost, Dr. Charlotte?
Hmm. Well, I can just go on my personal experience and say no, all is not lost. I think it's an individual and intrinsic situation that each one has to make an assessment of. Even now, today, I'm still struggling with, what is my purpose, and that has changed.
Yeah, right.
So there are so many ways to discover the purpose. You want to stay in the present. It's really important not to go back into the past and think about where you were, where you are now, and where you think you should have been.
Hmm.
I think one of the good things is that where we are right now is where we're supposed to be, and wrestling with that and understanding that is the most important. The here and now is what's important. We cannot change anything. We can dream about it. Uh, we can reflect on it. We can isо, woulda, shoulda, but we really can't change anything. Um, we try different things, explore yourself to be different, opportunities, get out of what you always do. And that's exactly what Joanne and I have done is that, we had no idea of how this podcast was going to turn out. And it's evolving and it's changing. And we
Yeah.
are changing individuals in it as we see what's going out and what's coming back in. It gives us different topics and gives us stuff to reflect on.
Yes.
Is very important, even at our age. Senior people do do explore change as well. Um, you want to get out, you want to mix with the community, you want to find out what's going on, and that's important because that's where you will find your challenges or misgivings about what is going on will be
Mm-hmm.
clarified. And that's usually by the younger people. Just listening to them sometime will make you say, oh, I've been concentrating in this area, this focus, and then you need to really need some help in this area. So you want to challenge yourself to discover your inner dream. And, that sounds so easy, but it's not. I think that we all have wonderful dreams, but sometimes fear
Mm-hmm.
stops us from venturing out and trying new things. Personally, I'm a high risk taker. I think less now because of certain situations, but um, and that's fun. It has been fun for me in the past. Not always successful, but it's fun. It's a good learning opportunity, and it helps me change my focus. You know your strengths, know your skills, and you also know your interests. And that's important. If you want to help somebody, you really want to know your skills so you can go in. If you want to help the community, what is it in the community? Are you a leader? Are you an organizer? Are you a planner? Just know that so that you can help.
Yep. Yep.
Not take over, but that you can
Yes.
help. Be okay with maintaining your individual while you find your purpose. You still be your individual while you're just trying to discover what your current purpose. I think that a lot of us feel or think that once we find our purpose, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
I personally don't believe that. I think it will change and evolve as we grow and learn different things,
Mm-hmm.
and our talents change, and the communities that we want to serve and help change. So that's what we get. Most important, get feedback. Get
Mm-hmm.
feedback from others. It's such a valuable thing to have, whether it's positive, negative, or neutral.
Mm-hmm.
It's good to have. Um, I think that having a class on how to accept feedback is needed because not everyone accepts feedback. And I, personally, I still have some ways to go, but I'm more open now than I used to be.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, do you have do you have natural talent that you are suppressing? Um, I wish I could sing. I don't know, for some reason I wish I could sing, but I can't hold a note. But I just see people that could just a cappella that could just do it.
I
And I
know.
would
Isn't
just
that wonderful?
love,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
I would just love to be able to walk into a room and without a mic and just start singing and just everybody say, "Oh my God." But I know that's a dream that's not gonna happen. Not because I haven't tried. I've been on many talent shows, but I'm not a singer. Just make sure that if you do have the natural talent, share it. If you singing, maybe uh, sitting down and teaching someone in the community how to sing, doing the small choir, or something that is purpose. So it may not be your big dream, but that is part of your purpose. Purpose. Really important is look to your role models. They are the ones that will tell you exactly how it is and how it's going to be. You may not want to hear it, but I think that the role models are just that, role models, that you're accepting of what they have to say. You may not like it, but you're open ears to that. And that's how I've grown, is through the role models I had through my professional and personal career, is listening to them. And then when someone else gave me feedback, taking that feedback back to them, and then they would say, "Well, you are," and then I just sit there stunned because after some reflection, I was.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, and another way we can look to and use our role models is that what is it about them that inspires you? What's encouraging? Kind of what are their core values and beliefs that you embrace and see in yourself. So that's another way of looking at our role models, even if they're, not somebody that you might see on a regular basis. It might be a national figure, or it might be a quote of Michelle Obama. What is it you see that's so inspiring about her, that that encourages you? So just keep in mind that, we may not be able to reach out and talk to our role models all the time, but their inspirational values, their core beliefs are on stage, and those are some things that we might want to, embrace and see and locate in ourselves. So,
right. And the things that they tell you, they may not resonate at that time, but I can't tell you how many times that, oh, LC told me that, or
yeah,
LH told me that,
yeah,
and I believe her, and now it's
yeah,
happening.
yeah.
So it is, and I believe them. I guess the thing is trust. They could
Hmm.
tell me anything, and I wasn't offended. And
Hmm.
my mother couldn't tell me anything, I would have been offended. But anyway, uh, that's just is the relationship that you had with those individuals, with those role models.
Right. Near or far, near or far.
Yeah. So part of that is being grateful.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, total grateful because the individuals who spent their time didn't have to spend their time with me. They could have chosen somebody else.
right.
I never understood what it meant to be chosen until I chose someone. So um, take stock of what you already know and
Hmm.
have, what
Hmm.
you achieved versus what you have not. And it's not necessarily material things. It could be other things. It could be faith. It could be vacation. It could be a whole number of things. But just be grateful for that. You know, you might have gone on a trip to Israel and somebody really wanted to go to Israel and you've done that. So be
Hmm.
grateful for that.
Right.
Consider how good you are already. I mean, give
Yeah,
yourself a pat on the back. We
right.
don't do that enough. We don't give ourselves a pat on the back enough. Okay.
You're so
Uh,
right. So right with that.
yeah. Um, so that's my thinking on what what isn't and being grateful because we should be grateful for every day that we are. As I remember working with some colleague, and he said it's better to be talked to than talked down to, and I didn't know what that meant. And now I do. I really do. So I want you to talk to me while I'm standing up. I don't want you crying on me when I'm not.
Ah, okay. Okay. That's the first time I've heard it put that way.
Yeah, that was caught me off guard, and I like it totally makes sense.
I hear you. I hear you. All
So,
right. So being grateful and thankful for what we already have. In closing out this episode, we kind of go back to that question. Dear Nanas, how do I start to understand my life purpose? And do you feel like you understand your life purpose? Well, we hope during this conversation that you gained at least one insight or heard something that inspires you to learn more, to do something, to take some action toward understanding your calling, understanding your purpose a little bit more. We know this podcast is not for everybody, and it is for a lot of somebodies, as we have a habit of doing. we close out each episode with a little saying or a little quote that we call a Nanaism. And our Nanaism is a quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson. And he once said, "The purpose of life is not to be happy. It is to be useful, to be honorable, to be compassionate, to have it have made some difference that you have lived and lived well." So on behalf of Dr. Charlotte and myself, we say thank you and take care. Please keep
Thank
listening
you.
and
Come
keep,
again.
thank you. And please subscribe to our podcast. Leave us a comment on our Facebook. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning into our podcast, Wise Black Nanas. New programs of Wise Black Nanas are on the 1st and 15th of each month. Listen in as you learn more about Wise Black Nanas, Dr. Sharla Walker and Joanne Early. They are everyday nanas. They are not famous, not celebrities or rich, well, rich in life and its experiences. We want you to come back. Tell your friends. So, look for Wise Black Nanas podcast wherever you find your favorite podcasts. Learn more about them and the coaching services they offer at www.wiseblacknanas.com.